coming to the main concepts of Spring. Inversion of control, IoC, along with the dependency injection pattern, aspect-oriented programming. I'm going to give an introduction to inversion of control along with the dependency injection pattern and aspect-oriented programming. Later, we'll be applying these two concepts. Right now, I'm going to give an introduction. Let us start with inversion of control, IoC, and dependency injection pattern. Now, dependency injection is a flavor of IoC. Here, the IoC, inversion of control, is best understood through the term, don't call me, I will call you. Now you are using traditional class libraries, Java APIs. Your application code is responsible for calling an appropriate Java API classes. When it comes to IoC, inversion of control, Spring provides lightweight inversion of control IoC container which pushes or injects the record dependencies to the application objects during runtime through its dependency injection pattern. So here dependency injection is a form of push configuration. It is entirely opposite to the traditional pull configuration in which your Java application object will pull the dependencies from its environment. So this is one of the major advantages of using Spring Framework. Here the dependency injection pattern is based on Java language constructs. It means instead of your application code using Framework API to resolve the configuration parameters, collaborating objects, your classes, your application classes can directly expose their dependencies through methods and constructors. So here dependency injection is based on Java language constructs. This is because instead of your application code using Framework API to resolve collaborating objects, configuration parameters, your application classes can directly expose their dependencies through Java methods and constructors. So DI is based on Java language constructs. The framework will call an appropriate values at runtime based on the configuration, because you will be configuring the beans in the XML beans descriptor file that will be used by the container, Spring IoC container. So it provides an appropriate values at runtime based on the configuration. Types of dependency injection. Here I have listed setter injection and constructor injection. What is setter injection? In setter injection method, Spring IoC container pushes the record dependencies to the application objects via setter methods of your Java bean. In constructor injection method, Spring IoC container pushes the record dependencies to the application objects via constructor arguments during runtime. See, for example, now we'll see how IoC pushes the record dependencies to the application objects. You have an interface called a service, okay, in which you can have abstract methods. All right. Now I have an implementation class called service IMPL, which implements service interface. That class has two dependencies. The first one is a configuration parameter timeout for setting the timeout. The second one is a DAO property that will contain persistent object. So your implementation class has two dependencies. Now Spring IoC container pushes the dependencies to the application's object via setter method. Now you have a setter method, set timeout, set account number. You have a setter method for your Java bean. You have setter methods for the properties of your Java bean. So here dependencies are injected into the application object. Coming to the constructor injection method, you can also initialize the properties of your implementation class through constructor parameters, isn't it? So here I have a constructor which takes integer and account DO. It expects reference an object of type integer and account DO. Now Spring IoC container pushes the record dependencies to the application object via constructor arguments. This is called as constructor injection. Now here dependencies are injected to the application object via constructor arguments. At the same time, Spring IoC container initializes your bean. So here dependencies are satisfied either by setter injection method or constructor injection method. So dependencies will be satisfied by the framework before any business logic methods on the implementation class are invoked.